Welcome to this episode of Fit Talks. Excited to spend some time with you and introduce you to another thought leader, influencer, and I think you're going to take away a lot of amazing information. I have known this man for a couple years, and I've known of him for many, many years. In the early 80s, 1981 to be specific, Gerhard Gschwandtner founded Selling Power magazine. And in the world of selling and sales leadership and business leadership, there are a few publications and sources where you can go to get the latest and most interesting and relevant ideas from thought leaders, CEOs, CFOs, chief sales officers, chief revenue officers, and you can learn an amazing amount of information. And since 1981, Gerhard and his publication, Selling Power Magazine, has been delivering on that, and a number of other things from events and so forth. So I'm excited to have this conversation today with my friend Gerhard Gschwandtner. Gerhard, welcome to Fit Talks. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Greg. Great to be here.
Awesome. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, I have some thoughts and questions I wanted to ask you, but tell everybody a little bit about what got you to start Selling Power Magazine. What was it? What was the impetus behind that?
Well, it was not by design. It was really by default because I was selling an audiovisual sales training course called The Languages of Selling, Verbal and Nonverbal Selling Power. And I was in sales training for many years and directed a team of people that produced sales training material for a sales force of 1,600 salespeople across 41 different countries in 4 languages. And I thought I'd start my own business and did sales training consulting and created this one course. And I sold it through direct mail. And that direct mail piece was very expensive. The course sold really well, and my margin was very slim. So I asked my graphic designer, is there a better way, a cheaper way, to get the same response with something that costs less? And he says, well, you may as well print on newspaper. That's the cheapest thing to print on. And I said, let's pursue that idea because I like the Wall Street Journal. So why don't we create an 8-page newspaper, write about the course, different articles, and call it Personal Selling Power at the time.
Wow.
And so I created that 8-page newspaper tabloid, sent it out to 25,000 director-level sales leaders, and it pulled exactly the same amount of responses that glossy mailing piece that I sent out, which cost me like 3 times more.
Wow.
And I was happy. And then something strange happened. I got a phone call from somebody from Liberty Mutual, and he said, I got you a newspaper, Personal Selling Power. Can I get 100 more copies? And I said, wow. I said, what you going to do with it? And he said, I want to hand it out to my salespeople because they're really good articles. There's good sales advice. And I said, sure. And then I got other phone calls, and I sold 3,000 copies of my direct mail piece. And that led into the next idea, which is I thought that maybe I should, instead of mailing the same piece, create a second one. And as I was laying it out and writing it, and I thought, maybe there's an idea for a publication. So I said, if you want to, and I couldn't commit to 12 times a year at this point. If you want to subscribe to this newspaper, you can buy individual copy for X amount. And if you want to subscribe to it, I was thinking about maybe we should do a copy test. So we had one test with occasionally published, the other one 6 times a year. And the 6 times a year option was $12. And I sent it out, and that's $12 a year option yielded 500 subscriptions,
Wow, that's
which
awesome.
blew me away. And by the end of that year, we had 7,500 subscriptions. And then something beautiful happened. 90% of them renewed. So the next year we had more and more and more, and that gradually built it up to the largest sales management publication in the country. We had copies in the backs of United Airlines in the seats. We had newsstand distribution. We had 150,000 circulation. We had Salesforce.com as our first really big advertiser, where in the first year they got a call from General Motors that was a subscriber of ours. They had over 1,000 subscriptions, and they bought $82.5 million worth of Salesforce licenses. And Mark Benioff was thrilled, and he signed the back cover for 5 years, and he invited me to the New York Stock Exchange when they went public.
Wow.
And that whole aura of being a publisher and interviewing so many interesting people got me to get invited to a private dinner with George Bush Sr. in Dallas at a Peter Lowe seminar, where I had breakfast with Zig Ziglar, I had lunch with Roger Staubach and Norman Schwarzkopf, and I had dinner with President George Bush 41. I got invited to play golf with Bill Clinton. I was speaking in Miami, doing a keynote during lunchtime, and the CEO who had this President's Awards meeting with 300 of his top salespeople didn't tell me that the surprise speaker was Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton arrived after my speech, and the owner said, do you want to play golf with me and Bill Clinton? And I said, yeah, I'm free. And also I got to interview Donald Trump at Trump Tower, and we did 2 cover stories with Donald Trump.
Wow. Well, you have certainly risen to heights that many people aspire to, and you got there because you filled a need, and you have continued to for more than 4 decades, which is awesome. Selling and sales acumen, business acumen, really, but sales specifically, is something that people hunger to be good at. I think I read somewhere, you could probably validate this, but I think the percentage of people that are in a role of sales, obviously, and I know everything is sales, but in direct, like in sales roles, the percentage of people is north of 30% of jobs are sales driven, sales oriented. So knowledge and insight on how to be better, how to how to bring your skills up, I think has always been a hot item and something that people desire. And you have had the opportunity, for years, to interview brilliant minds, thought leaders, sales leaders, coaches, gurus. You and I have had some conversations. You just mentioned Zig, and you've talked about Jim Rohn and Norman Vincent Peale and Dennis Waitley, and the list goes on of the great ones, the classics, we like to sometimes call them, or the icons. Those guys are dear to my heart. I can tell you, to a person, I can still quote all of these guys. I remember as a 20-year-old memorizing Zig Ziglar and putting the Yazoo City, Mississippi twang on it, and Dennis Waitley's stuff. I had it so immersed in me, and it really fueled me through time and gave me resilience and grit. And these icons and these people that built their careers, Mark Benioff and others that built their careers from that, they spent a lot of time with you. And so it led me to want to have this conversation with you, which is you have you're probably sitting on information. You probably have forgotten more things than people than people have studied to know about selling and sales. And I'm wondering if you could share your insights on maybe the 10, call it the 10 best sales disciplines or the 10 best sales lessons that you've picked up through the years, wherever it's come from your
Right.
own thing or whatever people said. I'm just curious if you could share some ideas that younger people who are not exposed to these icons and these classics, but their instruction has never lost its power, its value, and when people go and find them, they light up again because it was
Right.
so life changing. Could you share the 10
Yeah.
best disciplines you've learned in your lifetime?
Happy to. You talk about Dennis Waitley. He talks about the seeds of greatness. And I think that's the privilege that I've had by asking people for interviews. And before each interview, like Zig Ziglar, it was such an honor for me to have that legend as our first cover story.
Wow.
And I read every book that he has written up to that moment, and I had a list of like 87 questions I wanted to ask him. And then my wife reminded me, you have only 45 minutes. You probably get only to question number 7. So I had to triage. I had to decide. And Zig Ziglar was very gracious and gave me a full hour. But what was interesting about that is he was kind enough to refer me to other people
Wow.
that he knew. Like I got Mary Kay because of Zig Ziglar. And I got Roger Staubach because of Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar introduced me to Dr. Ken Cooper, the father of aerobics, which has influenced my life because I decided to commit to physical fitness like Zig did and like Dr. Ken Cooper preached. But one of the best insights about sales in describing what a salesperson does really comes from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, where he says selling is a process where you walk the road of agreement together with the customer. So that sparked an idea in me where I realized sales is not just a process of persuasion if you're really good at it, but it is a process of co-creation. Because if you walk too fast and you're ahead of the customer, you lose the customer. And if the customer is faster than you are and you're not quick enough to respond and catch on, then the customer is losing you. So you need to take a step at a time that matches the thinking speed and the thought process of the customer. And that's not easy to do.
No. What do you feel from your experience? What is that? What is the character trait or the action that you must take to be in line?
Excellent question. You want to be in the present moment with the customer and suspend your beliefs and your thoughts and your commitment to discussing the 5 points with the customer, but pay attention in the moment and be in the now and not in the next moment, because you can divert your mind to what happened before this call and you're going to get lost. You can think about what may happen in the sales call that you close or don't close, and you're going to lose that presence that you need to truly be there for the customer and understand that individual from a perspective of what is their pain, what are their goals, what are their dreams, and what solutions have they already tried that didn't work. And in that presence is what Dennis Waitley calls the precious present. And you want to seize that and pay attention to what's going on inside you while you're listening to the customer, and use your own mind as an instrument that is in tune with the customer.
Wow. You just said a mouthful there. I love that. I have to say, like, I could have heard this early on in my selling career, and I don't know that I would have fully known what to do to get there, because I think I had to lose customers. I think I had to lose business. I think I had to be anxious. I think I had to be frustrated and sad in order for that lesson to actually take place, to be in the present. And, you know, I it pushed me to know my content, but I was so wrapped up in following the procedure and moving the procedure at my pace, because I knew what I was supposed to do next, that I to your point, I moved ahead from the customer, and the customer wasn't with me. And it was eventually after learning to just use what you just said, which is the most important thing: suspend your beliefs, prepare yourself, but then leave it alone and be with that person and listen. If you can get there early, the earlier you can get there, the longer that skill lasts and the better
Right,
you become
right.
at it. But
See, there's a very narrow road you need to walk on. And there was a Harvard Business School professor who talked about empathy and ego drive. He says that salespeople are usually driven, and they have ambition. They want to win. They are hungry for the close. They want to get their commission. They want to get the trophy. They want to get to President's Club. So in order to express that side of you, you need to be action focused, and you need to drive. You need to be a driver. So that is ego drive. But on the other side, you need a healthy amount of empathy. And empathy means that you understand your feelings and other people's feelings. And but what if you use too much empathy and it flips over to sympathy? Then you're crying with the customer that this is too expensive. And so you need to walk the middle road. You need to find that balance.
that's so brilliant. I love that. You know, it's this is speaking to me as much as anything. What I love is happening here is my own learning, and I love that. And listen, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed to this channel, do that. And if you have comments, add them in here. And at the end, we're also going to share with you how to subscribe to Selling Power Magazine as well. But what's so good about what you just said for me is the action is what gets people into many people into the selling world. But you quickly get a lesson that's not how most of the world is. The client doesn't have the same motivation and action as you do to get to the close. They want to buy, but they, as they say, everybody wants to buy, but nobody wants to be sold. And so but you have to sell. Everybody has to sell. And so there's this dynamic of psychology that's happening, that there's a resistance to what you do, but a need for what you do, and a desire to get from you what you have, but not in the pathway that you're trying to do it. So how do you create an environment for yourself and others that gets through that cuts through all of that stuff as early in your career?
There's another balance beam that you need to walk on, and you want to stay in the middle, otherwise you fall off. You got to balance logic with emotion. So Zig Ziglar said, if you use all logic, you end up with the best educated customer that won't buy. And if you use all emotion, you may make the sale, but tomorrow you have the buyer's remorse. And you want to blend logic with emotion in the optimal way. And it is hard for salespeople to translate what the buyer is saying and reading what the buyer is saying into a narrative where you don't over-educate the customer, you don't under-educate the customer, you don't overstate your value, you don't understate your value. So it's calibration, and essentially you are the orchestra leader of the buyer's thoughts and your own, and you want to harmonize.
I love that concept of harmonizing and being a symphony and working the music together. In the world of FinFit Life, which is the Fit Talks audience, in the world of FinFit Life, we are providing financial solutions wrapped in health and wellness solutions. So we're speaking the two areas, the dilemma that exists in America, but also in the world. People don't have enough money, and then what they do have, they're not really putting to work, and they're not as well protected as they all ought to be. And then on the other side, their health choices. You see it everywhere in society. There's an epidemic of diabetes and overweight, and there's essentially there are 4 chronic diseases that are affected by 4 chronic behaviors, which is not eating well, not exercise and moving. So to your point about aerobics, to smoking and excessive drinking, and those things are leading to diabetes and stroke and cancers and lung disease. And so those 4 diseases are taking out 60% of the people on the planet. Now, I say all of that because the people that are building the businesses in FinFit Life are salespeople, and what you just said is really, really interesting about calibration, because there are some that have a tendency to over-educate the client, and some that under-educate, and it's finding that middle ground every single time. But it doesn't. The middle ground for one is not the middle ground for another.
Exactly.
That's to your point about you have to be present. You have to be able to do that. And what do you think it takes for? What do you think it takes for a person's ability to get to that place?
I think it's a really good question. I think that fundamentally in sales, you want to embrace 2 qualities. One is the quality of the teacher, where you educate the customer to a higher level of awareness and a higher level of possibilities, so that they think about a problem differently. And I use that word cautiously, because you don't want to indoctrinate a customer. You want to open their mind to new possibilities. So just paraphrasing and saying, there's a different way to think about this. Then you get the attention from the customer. Well, and you're not saying that your way of thinking about this is wrong. You just offer a new possibility to think about this differently. And that's what good teachers do. They help other people's minds to open up.
Oh, man.
And discover new things.
Oh, my gosh.
But at the same time, a good teacher also has to be a good student and make the customer your university. You want to get a degree in customer recognition or perception.
That is so good. It's really that expanding the people that you are with. I think about I tell a story about a woman who was my ninth grade English teacher, who is the one that really shifted my whole life, because she pulled me out of a bad path toward failing grades. And I didn't want to fail, but I was also pretty lazy as a student. And she invited me to do something I didn't really want to do, which was go after school 3 days a week. But if I didn't, I was going to fail the class. And so I did. And I didn't like her, and she didn't really like me. And then what happened is, like anything else, you love the person you serve, and you love the person who is serving you. And I ended up not only not failing, I ended up getting like an A minus, which was statistically impossible. But it was because of my extra effort and my humility and my desire to learn and her desire to teach. And to this day, I can still quote the first page of the Odyssey of Homer, and it's a very weird thing to be able to do, a little bit of a parlor trick. But she had such an impact on me. I call her a hero. So when anybody ever asks me who is a hero, I reference this woman, and she just helped me like break through limiting thoughts and consider another way to do things, the way you said, that there's a other way. And I became something I might not have become on my own because of her insistence on me doing that. So to this day, I still operate that same way. I remain curious,
Right.
like a child, and learning, so that, to your point, to be able to do that, to be able to take somebody to think differently, you have to. So I think that's what you just said, which is,
Yeah, and I want to reflect on what you just said, which is you, a teacher, installed in you, with your collaboration, a mindset operating system that allowed you to grow to a higher level of function.
I would agree.
And to me, success is all about the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right tool set.
Amen to that. You are speaking my language, my man. Absolutely. All right. So we said in the beginning of this that we were going to talk about, you were going to reference 10 of the sales lessons that impact you. I haven't been keeping any numbers here. So
That's fine. Let's roll into the next one. And let's stay with Zig Ziglar for a moment, where he says that success is not measured by what you have done compared to others, but compared to what you are capable of doing.
Say that one more time.
Success is not measured by what you have done compared to others, but compared to what you are capable of doing. In other words, don't compare your success with anybody else's. You want to, I think it's great to learn from other people that are more capable than you. That is a good thing. But you want to focus on your next level of success, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So that's why Zig Ziglar wrote, "See you at the top," because we want to have a mindset of growing continuously to become the best version of you. And you want to shift that silly mindset where you focus on external competition to internal excellence.
That is a hard thing to do for a lot of people. I struggled with that. I remember the early days being jealous, which is a terrible point of view. It's a terrible mindset. But being jealous of people that were excelling and making more money and selling more and getting big contracts and everything else, I was obsessed with that, and I wanted to win so bad. I was competing with other people. I was trying to consume information for myself, but I was actually competing with others. And it's a very interesting thing, because to your point, you have to make that shift to not looking at others, but looking at you. And I think even John Maxwell teaches that in his laws, that you have only so far you can raise yourself up, but that's what you should go to. So what's your recommendation for people to notch themselves up day by day? How should they do?
I think that again, this is a mindset where people can say, well, I have a fixed mindset. This is all I got. I cannot grow. And then there's a growth mindset. Carol Dweck talks about it. But I think Tony Robbins said it best, that all you need to succeed is within you now. And we need to understand that we are the orchestra leader of our success and our failures.
Yeah.
And we can focus on the best parts of us and repeat our own best performance more often. And we, ultimately our success is self-made. What is hard to do is create that mindset where you believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, believe in your potential, believe in your possibilities. And if you don't have those beliefs, then you're never going to look within you to find that greatness.
Yes. Every time you say these things, for me, it's like another breath of air, another breath of fresh air, and a reminder on the path. I think that I've been blessed in my personal career to know a lot of these people that you're referencing, to have been in their trainings, live with Zig. I've been to a couple of Zig events. Actually, even been to a marriage counseling session that Zig did, which was crazy. He was going around the country at a certain time, but he had such a great marriage and a great family that he was able to do that. And I wanted to learn. I could have learned anything from Zig, because he was so inspiring. But I think what you just said is interesting, because just as easily as those self decisions for greatness are, I think also if you decide that you're a fixed mindset, you are actually deciding on apathy. And for me, apathy, not caring about growing, not caring about being, influential, not caring at all is the killer for everything. I can't.
Well, then there's the next level, which is cynicism. And when you look at cynicism, it's really frozen disappointment. They're locked in.
Wow. Yeah. And that is a shift between being a powerful person or being an irrelevant person. I had a friend say to one time, he said, and I loved it, he said, if you don't like change, because what you're saying is this conversation is you're inviting people to constantly be in I love the word you said, install the discipline to be curious and keep learning, so that you are changing and getting better. People don't like the idea of change, but they accept that change is always happening. It's happening. They're going to be different tomorrow than they were today. Change is ever present. But
you in the fitness, financial fitness and physical fitness business. So with physical fitness, you have to do it on a regular basis.
Yes.
So you have to invest maybe 6 hours a week in going to the gym, maybe less, but if you do it, then you stay fit. But what about mental fitness? So
Right.
My advice is, if you spend 2 hours every day in professional development, in 3 years or less, you're going to outsell the competition.
Always.
You're going to be better.
Always. Yeah. both Zig and Dennis Waitley referenced that many times. They talked about the difference between super successful people and not is what they read, how much they read, how much time they spend in that. So that's fantastic. Okay, so are we staying with Zig, or are we continuing?
Oh, no, we can go on to many other people. I think that we live in an age where technology is the new religion, and buyers spend more time online. The face-to-face is shrinking, and salespeople need to also learn that technology is, especially AI, is changing everything. And I remember interviewing Mark Benioff. We have him on the cover of Selling Power magazine this month, actually. And he says the only constant in technology is change.
Yeah.
In the new world of business, the companies that embrace technology to reimagine everything about their business are the ones that will define the future. And that's an actual quote from Mark Benioff. But what's phenomenal about this is he started in 1999, so he has been at it for 26 years. And what he has done is, at critical inflection points, change the entire company many times. So every growth phase that a company goes through requires risky, radical, and complete changes. Wow. And if you're not willing to do that, you're going to fail. Intel, Andy Grove once wrote a book called Only the Paranoid Survive. Right. And Mark Benioff knows that when at Dreamforce last year, they were planning 3 months ahead before Dreamforce that, here's our program, here are our speakers, here are our themes. And Mark Benioff, 3 weeks before the event, he realized that agentic AI is going to transform everything. So he decided to throw everything out and rebuild 3 weeks before the Dreamforce, a new theme, new lineup of speakers, new sessions.
Wow.
And didn't have any naysayers in the company because they follow his visionary ideas, and delivered, and the company exploded again and grew again. And that is the secret. The DNA of ongoing growth is outchanging the competition.
I love that. I've read some things about that mindset. Obviously the technology companies, they're the leaders in that mindset of paranoia to change.
Yeah.
But that lives in every business, that lives with all of us, around urgency, and the urgency to respond, the urgency to be relevant, the urgency to serve. I think we can take a big idea like Mark Benioff's idea for an entire massive, very influential company, and then bring it to us on an individual basis. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's where the world is headed. It's everything is going to be more personalized, more individualized, and deeper and richer. We are entering a world that has unlimited possibilities for those that are going to embrace that change.
Wow.
And I want to bring another thinker in that is so important about sales, which is Seth Godin. And he was, in this interview, he said that yelling at people who don't want to hear from you, is not going to get you more customers. He said, you don't find customers for your products. Find products for your customers.
Right.
Let the customer drive your business.
Right. I love that. Yeah, that's just having a continuous innovation mindset. That's it. that goes back to what you said earlier about a growth mindset versus fixed. If
Yeah.
you, and it also goes back to what you initially said, which is being present. If you're present, you are flexible to pivot and hear what is being said and serve to that
Right.
need if you can.
Right.
If
I
you,
think
yeah,
there's another way to think about how Americans invest their time. They are obsessed with doing more. How can I do more in my business? How can I do more for other people? Um, how can I make more money? There's the philosophy of more. Then there is the idea of doing things differently. How can I change? How can I grow? How can I make myself better? How do I operate differently? And what people don't forget about it, don't think about it, is do nothing. Take time in your calendar and do nothing during that time. Go for a walk in nature. When I go for a walk, Virginia, we're blessed with a lot of hiking trails, and you walk on those paths and there are roots, and I feel rooted. I feel I'm among the trees. I can listen to those trees. I can be one with nature, and then I let my mind flow because I'm not ingesting information. I'm not listening to an audiobook or a podcast or whatever, pumping myself with information from the outside. I allow my own nature to speak to me, and I listen.
wow.
And I always walk away with greater ideas.
Wow, that's a that's an interesting thing. I'm thinking about a certain age group, younger than me. I'm the front end of Gen X, so we talk about my generation as the generation that doesn't care, which is not true, but it's a generalization. But I grew up, with no cell phones and stuff. We all know this. The transition's really relatively new, but we have these millennials and these Gen Zs that's how they've grown up, where their dopamine hit on the regular is from our from our electronic brain that we carry around. Now I'm going to be honest. I have my own addiction problem to this. This thing is a mind control device.
Yeah.
And to do what you just said, to get out and walk in nature, I know for sure in my brain and heart that is the right thing to do. What you just said, I don't know that that translate all the way through. Like, how do we inspire humans to do the right things? Like, to your point, we do have to do more. We do have to do it differently. We do have to do it better and faster. That's at a certain point we do, but also we have to do nothing, and we have to recalibrate, which is a word you started off with is calibration, which is a very important word. So how do people block that into their lives as a part of sales skills and relationship building? How do they do that?
See, I think that we all come to the realization that the world wants something from us every single day. We get hundreds of emails. We get exposed to 1,000 images of advertising every day. We see TikTok, and we get flooded every single day. But think about your own development. There are seeds of greatness in you that need to grow in the stillness of a precious moment where there's no interference from the outside. So you want to make a decision to invest time to listen to yourself.
I'm writing a list of some of the things that you're saying, and I'm writing things like you said could be as much as 2 hours a day of personal development. I think any amount of time every day, because the message that you also said was about exercise with Ken Cooper, doing something every day, which is related to everything in the world I'm in. Financial services and health and wellness are an everyday contract with yourself. The longer you play those games, the healthier you are and the wealthier you are. It's a very simple equation. Right. You get stacking and compounding value from an everyday thing all the time. And
I remember talking with a friend. She was an Olympic skier from Austria, and she says, I have 6 coaches.
6 coaches?
Why 6? I said, well, 1 for nutrition, 1 for skiing, 1 for physiology, 1 for exercise, 1 for my mind. I don't remember the 6th, but what stuck in my mind is that if we want to develop as a person, we need a multitude of counselors. We need to tap into the best and richest resources of the past study the ancient Greeks or Romans and study the classic literature. We need to tap into the best resources of the present moment. So try to understand what AI is all about and how it can serve you and how you can work smarter, not harder, using the best technology. And you want to study yourself. You want to be a student of yourself and create an inventory of your best qualities and then decide which ones to dial up again.
You've referenced AI a couple of times, and it's something that I'm thinking about as well. How do we merge the classic iconic sales training? I mean, Gerhard, you sent out newspapers,
right?
Okay, you sent out newspaper things in the mail, and people would wait for them for days,
right?
And now today we can write our own newspaper on ChatGPT and have it out in a second. Okay.
Yeah.
How do we merge the wisdom of the ages with the technology of the present and the thinking of great ones through time? How do we merge that? So if I'm a young new salesperson or business owner, how do I make maximum value out of those things in your mind?
You want to differentiate between what you want to do, how you want to do, what you want to do, and your goals and dreams. What do you want to accomplish? And why do you want to do it? Because the bigger the why, the bigger the try, the easier the how. And a goal is a dream with a deadline. And if you have big dreams, and you're going to think big. Like Mark Benioff said in our early conversations when he started the business, he says, and he's an outsized personnel. He is shoe size 16. And he says, Gerhard, you don't think big enough. And I realized, I looked at his 16 to my 10 and a half. And it gave me ideas that I was able to implement, and over time my dreams changed of what I want to achieve. And one of the things that I was really good at is get people that are totally out of reach to spend an hour with me and learning from them, and I consider them like university professors.
Wow.
For my own benefit, but I was the broker of ideas between the solution providers and the problem owners.
Yeah, that's nice.
And that's the why. I enjoy that. And if you ask me, why am I doing it? Because I saw my grandmother do it. She ran a country inn in a small town outside of Salzburg in Austria. And there were 3 tables. There was a table for the fine people that has a tablecloth and they drank wine. And the other tables, they drank beer, and there were two long tables. When one table was full and another person came, she pulled people from that long table to the other table, so they had company. And she listened to everybody. And when Craig came in and said, well, I just cut down a bunch of trees, but I need to get them to the sawmill. Do you know who is attracted to, because I can't do it with my horses. So she was the broker between the people, and she was the social director, if you will, of that little ship, and connected everybody, and that's what I'm all about. I'm a connector.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's a great story. I didn't know that about you, and so it's in the family blood then, obviously.
Right. It's I'm enjoying making matches. I just was able to introduce Alex Kochichin from Fuel Inc. With Mark Benioff, and I had the idea on a walk, and I thought, how can I get those two together? So then, as I was walking, I thought, well, I got to tell Alex to create a series, Fuel for CEOs. And I thought, well, I work with that title, and then I thought, who should be part of that? And then I introduced Alex to Elon Musk, to Mark Benioff, and Bill McDermott. And Mark Benioff was the first one to respond. So next week he has a 30-minute meeting with Mark Benioff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, you are a connector.
Now I went for another walk yesterday, and I thought, how can I get Alex invited to the White House? And I have an idea, and I want the White House to call him to invite him.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. Well, that would be phenomenal, and I love that you are out on walks. You're doing what you said. You're out on walks and thinking, and creating really meaningful connections that get a lot of things done. That's your balance beam that you're also walking. So very cool. Any other life-changing pieces of wisdom that play in your soul and in your mind that you'd want to share?
Well, I've been privileged to learn from all of those great people. And I talked about the multitude of counselors. And my advice to other people is look beyond your parents for role models in your life. Mm-hmm. There are three levels of your mindset. There is the implanted mindset, the imprinted mindset, and the inspired mindset. The implanted mindset is what you learn from your parents. And they give you roots. They plant you in the ground, in their garden, but your goal is to grow up in this world and become your own parent. You become independent of your parents. You got to learn how to feed yourself and learn to make money and be independent, because your parents are not going to stay around forever. Then there is the imprinted mindset, where you get a layer like what Craig talked about earlier, learning from your teacher. And that teacher gives you that impressive mindset operating system that guides your decisions.
Yeah.
But then there's a third level we all need to think about, which is the inspired mindset, which is, what are your hopes? What do you dream about? And if you know your dreams, then you can make progress by moving quietly into the direction of your dream and make that your life's mission.
Right.
And Mary Kay said, so many people die with their music still unplayed. And you don't want to be one of them. You want to realize those dreams.
That's powerful. That's really, really powerful. I think I was trying to think to myself, what would be the idea, what would be something that a young salesperson or somebody who's struggling to get themselves out of a lack of momentum. I sometimes call,
I think that a lot of people are stuck, and when you're stuck, you want to change your self-talk. And I remember somebody I interviewed said, if it is to be, it is up to me. So you take the reins of your own life, and you can make a decision to grow right now.
yeah. Well, I think that what you just said, if you take ownership with urgency, with self-reflection on what's been implanted in you, imprinted in you, and inspired in you, if you assess those, take ownership of them, you know that you can add value to each one, and what's been implanted is implanted. That comes with you being here. What's been imprinted is something that you allowed to some degree and is still with you. And what has been inspired, you've sought after, and you can continue to feed that. So you build what's imprinted, leverage what was implanted, and continue to never stop feeding what's inspired. That is a big message right there. That's why I wanted to talk to you, for sure.
I think there's one more thing. When you look at the implanted mindset, you want to view it as a garden. And when you look at a garden, you're going to inevitably see that there are beautiful flowers and there are lots of weeds.
Yes.
And your job is to look at the past and continue to water the flowers and stop watering the weeds.
Again, lots of fresh air from you, my friend.
Yes,
This has been to use your term, a master class. This has been a master class in reflection, in life's training. You've offered up a lot of nuggets of wisdom. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to have a connection and a relationship with you. I'm grateful that you were willing to share your life's path. I hope you continue to bring about the thought leadership from thought leaders, and we'll continue to do that. For those that want to jump on to sellingpower.com, you'll see everything you need, all the access to everything. If you like what we talked about today, subscribe and be sure and leave some comments, and we'll make sure that we have an opportunity to respond. With that, thank you for this episode for you attending, and Gerhard, for you. Thank you for attending this episode of Fit Talks. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Craig.
You bet.
That was wonderful.
Boom. All right. That was great, Gerhard.